This conference will now be recorded.
It was less than a foot of water in the middle of the channel.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 5:35. Apologize for the lateness. Our first item that we need to do is the approval of the minutes from July 23rd, 2024 meeting. Is there any corrections or comment?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to offer a comment, a correction. In the section ordinance amending unified development ordinance to clarify the table of permitted and special uses in the B20 and B30 zoning districts. Well, the last sentence says, Mr. Granger made a substitute motion to recommend that the Board of Commissioners adopt the ordinance amendment with two changes. That all of the added specific uses would require a special use permit in the B30 zone. And that the designation of food trucks in conjunction with public or private events and golf cart sales and services would be as permitted uses in B20 and B30. Now, my correction, if the board agrees, was that we said all of the former special uses in B20 were to become permitted uses. Is that how?
That's good. That's the way I
That's
stated it.
correct.
So I'd like to offer that as a correction to the minutes, Madam Chair.
Okay, and like to take a vote on the corrections of the minutes? All for change?
And we'll bring you an ordinance to accomplish that at your next meeting in
I
September.
know there's a lot of stuff that has to happen with all the ordinance stuff changing and
Sure.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring it to you next month and you can discuss it and make that change.
Thank you. Ordinance amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance Update Coastal Area Management Act, minor permits program administrative requirements. Is there any comments on it?
Can I ask a question?
Did you
Mine
mean
is
to skip
literally-
number 4?
Oh.
Number 4.
My stuff's literally sitting in my printer. Is there any way I can get a copy?
Okay, I'll go back to number 4.
I apologize. It's been a day.
I apologize. Number 4, number 3 is public comments. There's no one here to speak. But number 4, the ordinance amendment, Unified Development Ordinance to simplify zoning permits and application requirements.
Yeah, this is the same ordinance that you considered at your meeting last month, and you all had some discussion about whether or not we should require a zoning permit if the person is simply clearing a lot. It's essentially the same as what you reviewed at the last meeting. We did add some language just to make it clear that we're talking about activities that involve heavy equipment, significant earth moving equipment, heavy mechanical equipment, not somebody with a chainsaw or with a shovel or something like that. We did also stipulate that for the lot clearing, it's a no fee permit. So like, for example, if you apply for the lot clearing permit, there's no fee associated with that. Theoretically, you're going to pay the permit fee when you apply for the house or whatever. So that's really the only change that we made to what you saw the last time.
Yeah, but my question still with that is, with the way that it's worded is, again, if let's say, for instance, right now I have a tree that I need to get taken down at my house. Well, they're going to come out there with a bobcat and they're going to come out there with the piece of equipment that extends out so that they can chop the tree because it's close enough to the house.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about that, if you read the ordinance, it actually states that equipment such as, I mean, those are things that maybe I'm totally, completely wrong and maybe I misread it.
No, I mean, I think it's a reasonable concern. I just want you to know that we would not intend to require a permit for taking down a tree for something like that. And so like any ordinance, there's got to be some level of judgment by people like me or Julie or whoever might succeed us. So we tried to clarify that it's, large mechanical equipment. I can tell you it's from an interpretation. If a tree service comes out and removes a tree from your yard, we're not going to require a permit for that. That's not at all the intent. So.
Okay, all right. But you understand in the future, what I'm thinking of in the future, because it says large mechanical thing, I didn't know if it should be a certain amount of clearing. In other words, over a quarter acre or something some set number, half
Well,
acre.
someone, if they're taking a dead palm tree down, they have to have a piece of equipment. I don't think that's what this ordinance is for.
But
Yeah.
I realize that now we understand that, but I'm trying to also interpret in the future to make sure everybody in the future understands this as well.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say to you is you don't have to include this component of the recommendation. We simply included it in there. We've not been requiring that, but we included it in here for your discussion because there's been confusion. There are some people, including some of the current elected officials, who think we do require for that. And what I've told them is, no, we don't typically require that. Language is a little confusing. So at our level, I think we're happy with whatever. We're just looking for some clarification one way or the other.
Let me ask him as a builder, what do you think about this again?
I think you should have its own permit period to clear law. You got to get its own permit to get the permit.
To build the house or.
And you don't know what you're doing until you clear the lot. Like I got 4 lots in Newbern. I got to clear the lots to be able to see what I got, where I can pin my house to put the house where it needs to go.
Yeah.
This is a no-cost permit. It just gives us,
It's just more paperwork.
but it just gives us, people see things happening and they come in here and say, what's going on? And we say, well, we don't know. But if we can have somebody come in here and say, I've got to clear the lot, I'm preparing to build it, or I'm going to put some fill on it or whatever, then we know what's going on.
So you basically this is to have somebody reach out, send an email, make a phone call, send a pigeon over with some little writing on his leg saying, basically to inform the town of what's going on.
Yeah, there are no standards, like there's no rule that says you can only clear a certain portion or have to save trees or can't do this or can't do that. It really is just for situational awareness. And like I said, I think at our level, if you want to require that, great. If you don't, that's great too. I just want it to be clarified so that I can answer the questions when people do ask, hey, we don't require a permit for that. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. Or, hey, yeah, we do require a permit. They need to come in and get one. So.
Yeah. Moorhead, Newbern, they don't require one to clear. Because I got to submit enough paperwork as it is for my setbacks, my house box. And I had to clear the lot and then get all that together to go and submit all my paperwork. Then I do my zoning, then I get my permit.
Yeah, totally reasonable. I mean, and that's the balance that you all, and ultimately the board is charged with striking, is how much burden do you want to put on the applicant? Is the value there for the town itself? So again, totally fine with whatever you all and the board decide. Just want to have something clear one way or the other.
What I think this is my understanding of the ordinance is that, if you call in and you're getting ready to build, and this is just a rules for them to say, hey, you don't have to have a permit. So,
But you have to have the other stuff. And at this point, I'm just kind
I
of.
think it's just a guide for them. Is that correct?
Well, it just gives us notification that the lot needs to be cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we'll get people calling, these trees are coming down, did you know anything about it? There's dirt on the road. Has a CAMA permit been filed for? I mean, we get all sorts of calls in here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I'm sure you do, you get a lot of calls from people that don't like change.
Yeah.
I met Sal Spooner's building a house, remodeling. It's $1 million plus remodel for 1.5 years. I pull up, it's a public street. I'm on the right side, the house is on the left side. The lady walks out and said, don't park on my side of the street. But somebody had to park on that street to build her house. And we deal with it every day. And I just say, the less paperwork, the better it is. We got enough to go through as it is.
Even if it could just be a phone call, an indication of, hey, I'm doing it. I don't have.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you.
Because you're gonna be in here getting a zoning permit. It don't take long to clear a lot. You have a lot cleared in a couple of days, and then you're here.
Unless they clear it just and then leave it.
So I think if you all don't want to include this requirement, what I would suggest to you is either don't address this ordinance and just table it indefinitely, or tell us to make it go away. Or you could just delete the phrasing under number 1. And probably, I would say if you don't want to do this, let's just move on. And really, I'm talking, obviously, I know your positions, but I don't know what yours
Yeah,
are.
Well, I would agree with the gentleman.
Okay.
I can bring it back next time with the changes that you identified.
And then we'll talk about it and figure out if that's really what we want to do. Yeah, truthfully.
Fair enough.
Because at this point, I think it's just,
So we're going to table it,
Guess we need a motion.
make a motion to table it.
I
I do.
move we table it. Yeah. Then I'll second his motion.
All right.
And I know there was no fee.
All right. So thank you. So Julie, you want to talk about number 5?
The town of Cape Carteret wants to take on the responsibilities of issuing CAMA minor permits. And our ordinance currently says that the county does it, and so that would have to be changed. And this agenda item proposes the changes. In addition, there is a appendix that talks about the CAMA minor permit program that would also have to be appended to our Unified Development Ordinance. So that's the gist of this item.
So one clarification or minor correction. The county has actually told us they're not going to do this for us anymore. They don't want to do it. They actually wanted to stop doing this a year ago. And I basically held them off until Julie could get on board and get some training in this. So the county is no longer providing this. They actually stopped probably about a month ago. In the meantime, there's probably only like 10 or 12 of these a year. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's just you have to go through the bureaucratic requirements of the Division of Coastal Management. And that's really all this does. So currently, we're relying on the Division of Coastal Management staff in Morehead City to issue I think we've got maybe 1 or 2 that are in process right now. So this just simply says the town would issue them. And generally, I'd prefer that all the permits make them one stop as much as we possibly can. So it's consistent with that. But so it's not that we necessarily want to, we really don't have a choice, it sounds like. So.
and how many of those are there actually? You said only a handful a year is of the minor.
I think there were something like 10 or 11 last year. So it's, if it's a major permit, that's got to go through Morehead, of course. But things like people putting in a dock or bulkhead or things like that.
Those are examples of mine.
He always handles the money.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's pretty common for the other towns. And I think really the county has convinced most of the other towns to issue these CAMA permits with their town staff. They want us to do the same. They don't want to be in that business, I don't think, for the towns.
And Julie's now got the required, you've got the knowledge or whatever you need to go through it.
Yeah, she's completed a fair amount of training. There's still some more training to be done, but and the folks in Morehead City, I'm sure, will help us if we need help. So
I move to recommend to the commissioners that they adopt this ordinance.
All in favor for the ordinance change?
thank you.
And Julie, got some more work, huh?
Just pile another thing on her.
Number 6.
So item number 6 is an ordinance amending the UDO to clarify impervious surfaces. Bottom line, what this does is to make our ordinance consistent with the state of North Carolina's definitions of impervious surfaces. There are just a couple of changes. It's very short. Impervious surfaces. The following materials shall be considered as impervious surface under this section unless otherwise exempted from the section. That's an addition. And then the following paragraph, the following materials shall specifically be exempted and shall not be considered as impervious surfaces under the section. Item D, gravel or stone not used as a driveway or parking area would be taken out. It would be stricken. Things that would be added would be porous concrete, permeable interlocking concrete pavers, concrete grid pavers, porous asphalt, number 57 stone, and any other material with pervious characteristics as determined and authorized by the state of North Carolina. They may update what they consider impervious in the future. That is it. And that way we would be consistent with what the state allows, state laws.
Move to recommend the commissioners adopt this ordinance.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Thank you. Number 7 is something that in my discussions with the town attorney in the aftermath of the tobacco and vape shop issue that I think you all are familiar with. This is another attempt to tighten up the language that we have in the UDO so that hopefully we don't find ourselves in a situation like this again. So the proposed ordinance amendment deals with section 14.8.22, and it's essentially the direction to staff on how to classify a proposed use. And so essentially what the existing language says is you try to find the closest match or a similar match, and if the UDO administrator is comfortable making that determination, will permit the particular use that's required. In the past, or currently I should say, in the ordinance, and certainly was the case for the tobacco and vape shop issue, it essentially says if the UDO administrator is not comfortable assigning a proposed use under one of the existing listed uses, the applicant can either request an amendment through the planning board, the board of commissioners, or they can appeal that decision to the board of adjustment. And as you know, they did appeal to the board of adjustment. The board of adjustment should issue their final order tomorrow night. The proposed change in here is really consistent with what we talked about in the ordinance amendment you all recommended at your last meeting. We took a lot of uses that were maybe more concerning for the community, and what we said is there are special uses only in the B30 zoning district. And so really what this proposed ordinance amendment says is if the UDO administrator cannot identify a similar use under the existing table of permitted special uses, it automatically becomes a special use in B30. And the town attorney believes that gives us a stronger legal position if something like this happens again in the future. There's always the option to come through the planning board and the board of commissioners for an amendment or to appeal to the board of adjustment. But by having that additional language in there, we think it makes us even stronger when dealing with something like this in the future. So that's the ordinance for your consideration tonight.
Move to recommend to the board of commissioners that they adopt this new ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The commissioners.
Number 8 is an ordinance amendment that essentially the practical result of this, if it's ultimately adopted, is it would require signs that are painted or adhered or posted inside or outside of a window. They would be required to be considered in the town's formula on the amount of signage a business can have. So in our current ordinance, it says for every linear foot of street frontage, the business is entitled to a total of 3 square feet per linear foot. So for example, if a building has 100 linear feet on the street frontage, they're entitled to a grand total of 300 square feet of signs. And that's all kinds of signs, whether it's on the wall, whether it's a freestanding sign. There are other limits on the size of the freestanding sign, but it counts toward that grand total. And in that example, that's 300 square feet. In our current ordinance, we also specifically have an exemption that says you can put signs either on the outside of the window or on the inside of the window, and that's just exempt. You don't need a permit, doesn't go against the allotment of the 300 square feet. The ordinance amendment that's presented for your consideration tonight essentially says you can still have those window signs, but it counts against the total allotment of 3 square feet per linear foot. And so what that does is it essentially eliminates the free-for-all on windows. And so, for example, I'll be perfectly upfront with you. There are some folks in the community have expressed concerns that if something like a tobacco and vape shop comes into town, if you look at some of these uses in other communities, they tend to have an awful lot of signage. And so this is an effort to really just kind of control that a little bit better. I will tell you that the last thing that we want to do, at least at our level, don't want to hurt any of the existing businesses. Took a tour through every single business in town earlier or last week. And I don't think this is going to present a hardship for any existing business. But it would, however, just kind of strengthen our ordinance going forward. And hopefully, and it really could be anything. It could be a tobacco and bake shop, could be a bicycle shop, could be a clothing store. Just gives us another control. We're not saying you can't have them. We're just saying that it's limited to the 3 square foot.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? So
Please do.
obviously open signs, open signs, any signs would also, like an open sign hanging in somebody's business would also count towards the linear feet as well. Where currently it's not in the ordinance. Am I correct? Number one. And then number two, so like over here in the shopping center. So one of the businesses in the shopping center, the signs that's above the buildings, do they actually at this point even comply to the footage per linear foot on the road?
Talking about, like, for example, Michelangelo.
Yeah, I'm just using an example of anything.
Yeah, so if you think about it, so let's just say that a building has 50 feet of frontage,
Yeah.
in their particular unit.
Yeah.
So they're allowed 150 square feet of signage. And so the simple way to look at it, just as
Yeah.
a mind check, is, does it look like the letters are 3 foot tall? And they're probably fine, because the sign never goes.
Yeah, can't go past
Usually
the
doesn't go
building.
all the
Yes,
way
yeah.
across their entire frontage. So I think everybody's in compliance over there. There may be something we missed, but
Yeah,
generally, I think
no,
they're.
the reason I was asking the question, because now if they're just barely in compliance, and now we put in an ordinance like this, and it's an open sign sitting in their window. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or like the hot pizza sign in the one, Michelangelo, since we're talking about that one. Now have we pushed over the compliance issue to, you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
To now we're backstepping and saying, well, you've already purchased this sign, you've had it in there for 5 or 6 years. Well, now you can't use it any longer.
So we are extremely sensitive to your concern, which is why we went to visit all the
Yeah.
businesses in town. So my answer to you is I don't think we're going to push anybody into a non-conforming
Okay.
situation. What I'm searching for right now is, I think we have an exemption for open
I
signs.
think you're
if
correct.
I'm not
In
mistaken.
if I remember,
So
last
that
time I
wouldn't
read through it.
change.
Yes.
Or flags too, right?
If it's like a US flag or
Yes,
something like
I
that.
believe that is correct.
There are a lot of-
I'd have to-
It's been a while since it's probably been 6 months since I've read through the entire
The
book.
ordinance in about freestanding, remember?
We did.
Yeah, so actually, I think I misspoke. I don't think we have an exemption for the open signs. We do have an exemption, for example, things like time and temperature.
I thought it was an open sign in there as well somewhere.
Yeah, automobile service stations, like the price signs, those are exempt. Honestly, I cannot quite recall, but what
Okay.
I would say to you is that the open signs, like, we're not saying you can't have those. We're just saying that that's going to be, if it's not exempt, then I apologize. I'll have to look.
Yeah,
a
no
little
worries.
closer. But most of them typically wind up being maybe like 2 foot by 2 foot
Yeah.
or something like that. So I don't think it's gonna hurt anybody.
Okay.
I think, technically speaking, if the person can document that the signs were in place prior to the adoption of this ordinance, if it's ultimately
Yeah.
adopted by the board, they would be non-conforming signs and they could remain. But beyond that, I truly don't think it
Okay.
would hurt anybody. And clearly our intent is not to hurt anybody.
And I believe this is a must-have in the ordinance. I 100% agree. This is a must-have. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not hurting any businesses that's already in place by doing something by footage or anything else. But no, I agree. This is a
You
must-have.
Keep that carnival lookout. I'll
Yeah.
make a motion to.
Second.
I was going to
All
say.
for it?
Okay? Well,
I
great.
mean,
Well,
that
thank
nips
you.
it in the butt now.
Yep.
Okay.
Does,
Y'all are
Commissioners-
very efficient this evening, so
Yeah.
thank you. So the next meeting is on Monday, September the 9th. If you all would like to designate one of yourselves to come make a report to the Board of Commissioners, you can do that. If you aren't available or don't want to do that, I'm happy to do it for you. So,
I tried to make it last time, and the meeting where I could not change it.
I'll be glad to attend the meeting.
okay.
I'll speak.
Your next meeting is on September 17th. Like I said, we'll have that item on there about the special uses in B20 that we talked about a few minutes ago. In terms of town staff comments, really just wanted to update you that the board did approve that ordinance amendment. They actually approved all of the ordinance amendments that were recommended to them at the last meeting. So, yeah, Julie, is there anything that you would like to add?
Nothing.
And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about anything.
I have a concern. What's the ordinance read on parking on the shoulders of the road?
Yeah, so if there's a no parking sign in place.
It isn't.
Okay,
It's in
then-
the neighborhoods that, I don't know, Ms. Paxton's probably noticed it on Lejeune Road,
Oh, yeah.
where I used to live at 124. The house across the street there parked up and down in everybody's driveway. You noticed that the man and woman that lived there were elderly, and he died. And the daughter that lives over at the old boat ramp over there kicked her mother out, and they got a lot of people living there. And they up and down the streets. One of them was in the ditch this morning. And they're using other folks' driveway because they don't park in their yard.
So to answer your question, we allow parking in the right of way. However, if there's a no parking sign, you can't park there. And the board delegated the authority to erect no parking signs to the town manager. And so I've added a few of them in my time here, and I'm certainly happy to take a look at that location. If you say it was 124?
It's across from 124.
They've
Okay.
got a fence in their
Lejeune,
yard.
124 Lejeune?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a lot of cars there. A lot of people live there, I reckon.
They got a fence up and I don't know why, and they put their boat in the driveway instead
And
of
they
keeping
park
it.
on the shoulder.
And then they park on the
And
shoulder.
this morning I went to work and it's a SUV in the ditch.
Yeah,
Well,
I saw that.
what I will say to you, in addition to that, I mean, clearly if it's a safety issue, then we'll absolutely make the person move. I think probably if it was impeding the drainage, we probably would make a
Without
move
a doubt.
also. So let me take a
We've had.
look at it and see.
Yeah,
if
just
we-
say I'm a little concerned what's going on there
Okay,
and it don't look good.
okay.
Can I also ask a question? So when somebody's building a house, and obviously a culvert doesn't always get put in prior to the house getting, or does it normally get put in prior to the house getting completed? There's just a couple spots, that one house is being built and the water's backing up, but with Circle Court, I have to look up the map, the Charles's, house. But the old chief lived, Miller,
Yeah.
and then he lives a lot next door, and then there's the house being built. Water's backing up there terribly.
Where Charles is building the new house. Yeah. So
It doesn't seem to be a culvert under there. If there is, it must be a tiny one, or it's covered with dirt currently from all this rain that we've had.
yeah, so I'm familiar with that particular issue. And when they initially were clearing the lot and they put the smaller culvert in, there's two different driveways there. I think the one driveway's got a larger
Yeah,
culvert.
the one has a
The
larger.
other one's got a smaller one.
Yeah.
And we basically let them leave that there during construction
Okay.
with the expectation that it needs to be replaced and improved when the construction is
It
done.
just seems like a lot more dirt. All this rain, it's pushed the dirt in front of it, and it's clogging it
Be
up.
happy to talk to the contractor about it and see if we can. I certainly don't want it to flood.
Yeah, you go by there and you watch the water back up, and I'm like, okay, this is getting close to the road. But with all this rain, it's also hard to, currently, it's hard to tell what's what, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we got another.
Yeah, I get it.
We skipped.
But we do require that the person put in a culvert, or if there's no ditch system there, they've got to basically tilt the driveway back and create a swale.
We passed it. Do you all have comments you'd like to make?
But we made them, so I just didn't have much to. I just
Yes,
basically
okay.
updated y'all on the board's actions. So
I would like you to look at 300 block of Lejeune, water still sitting there. It's been that way for 18 years. But
Make a motion, we adjourn.
in front of the park, there's water, and 306, water stays in front of that. It's the way the road's paved.
yeah, and
The 300
I'm actually hoping to repave Lejeune Road in that area. It probably needs
300
it.
blocks bad.
We won't be doing it this year, but perhaps next year on the rotation that we're on. With the drainage issues, the one at Quail was different because that's a
Yeah.
construction related issue. But just generally, we're trying to chip away at drainage issues all over the town as we can. And Ryan Hutchinson, our public works guys, do a great job. And we're slowly getting to those. I'm happy to look at that one and put it on the list. I just don't want to give you any expectation we'll solve it
Right,
tomorrow.
because
So-
it's affecting the park too, the water sitting in front of it.
And
I mean,
y'all got the excavator
and
now, which can help that tremendously with drainage issues.
DeMario's
Yeah.
land's not being mowed
Yeah.
properly.
They're yeah, and honestly, Public Works really is doing good
Yeah,
work.
they
I
are.
mean, they're doing a lot of great things. It's just we're chipping away as we can, Public Works. So.
Sure.
And I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Del Moro again. I've talked to him. He's always been very responsive when I call
Yeah,
him. So
He was very, and he always had people taking care of his land, but for some reason it's being skipped right now.
I make-
We have a motion to adjourn.
May I say one more thing?
Yep.
Did you check on the water marker slow down?
yeah, we
22?
the no wake zones.
Yes.
Yeah, so we actually took delivery of new markers, and Ryan is coordinating with the county to get them installed. So he's got them. They were all sitting in my office not too long after that. So we're working on it. So
I didn't hear
I,
back.
I will say
Yeah, I'm
that, so
sorry.
there's one area that I cut through.
there's two of them that are
And I
missing
make
that
a
he's.
cut through right, that little cut through in front of your house,
I don't know where
it's
they
the
went
height.
to.
And I run through it no matter what type of sign you put up.
I don't
Well-
think the storm took them away. I think it's
No, I'm just saying, because I have to be up on top to make it through my shortcut. The rest of the time I slow down and I go around slowly, but
Take a long way around, you won't have no problems.
I've been doing
I
it
got
since.
stuff
You,
over
you,
there.
you should see him out there in the not too distant future. So,
It's a little shallow there.
But you
I don't know where
understand
they
where I
went
put
to.
that, right in front of her, where I make that cut
Who
through,
knows?
and I'm sorry, I don't care what.
also,
sign
did
put
you
out
check
there.
on the money for the sidewalks in front of McDonald's?
I inquired with town staff, like longer term town staff, and nobody's has any recollection of that or could find
Nobody
any
got it?
records about it. So
Of the money that McDonald's gave us for sidewalks.
I want to say the McDonald's was probably rebuilt maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, but
15
we
years ago,
earmarked the
maybe,
money
so.
and Sandy put it in the cash pool.
Nobody could find any
probably
records
have it.
indicating that. If you have something, I'm happy to look at it
Probably
again.
have it from
So.
my commission days.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Y'all have a wonderful evening. My wife's not going to know what the heck I'm doing home.
Yeah,
so.
she's like-
I know, me though.
Yeah.
Now, let's-
I just let